Hello and welcome everybody to episode 4 of my Grim Dawn Basics series. Today I'm gonna talk about character stats in the game, or like more specifically, I'm gonna talk about all the stats that you will find in your 3 character sheet pages. Now when it comes to the attributes on this game, you will get 1 attribute point per level that you level up. And there are also some side quests that will give you attribute points. You will encounter them, and some of them you will have to search. And the general rule of consensus is usually to put everything into physique except for the points that you need to equip gear, those you put into cunning and spirit. And I would highly advise you to follow that rule if you're playing hardcore especially. If you're playing softcore, you can take a little bit more aggressive approach. And keep in mind that physique gives you defensive ability, more HP than cunning and spirit, and also bonus regeneration. The regeneration is early on it's okay, later on regeneration is not that great unless you like all in it regeneration. And I will like talk about these stats in a minute here as well. Cunning gives you health, less than physique, but still health, bonus physical damage, bonus piercing damage, and bonus duration damage, which in this case means only duration damage for internal trauma and bleed damage. Internal trauma is basically the damage over time component of physical. Pierce does not have a damage over time component, and bleed does not have a flat component. Like, pierce and bleed are not the same damage type, even though many people think that they are. Also, cunning increases your offensive ability. Offensive ability determines how well you can crit, and defensive ability determines how well you dodge or you get crit or not get crit, right? Spirit gives you HP as well, just as much as cunning, but less than physique as well. And it increases your bonus magical damage and bonus duration damage for magical damage types. So for fire you got burn, for cold you got frostburn, for lightning you got electrocute, for acid you got poison, for vitality you got vitality decay, and for aether and chaos you have no damage over time. And all that damage will be increased by spirit. But this is not the only way to increase your physical, pierce, all kinds of damage. Like, cunning spirits is not the only way to do that. You can also do it via gear and via devotions, and you will see that on the second page. Also, spirit increases your energy, your base energy, and your energy regen. So if you have energy problems, it might sometimes be okay to put some more points into spirit as well. But yeah, usually try to follow the rule that you want to put all your points into physique unless you need them for gear, and in that case you have to only put those points that you need for the gear into cunning and spirit. There are 2 exceptions. You can do a cunning heavy Nightblade and a spirit heavy Arcanist, even in like hardcore, I guess. Nightblade, because of this Anatomy of Murder skill that gives you percent cunning, so the more cunning you have, the more flat cunning you have from your attributes, the more cunning you will get overall, and because of that you actually gain also a lot of HP and offensive ability because of that. And for Arcanist has this inner focus ability here, which gives us percent spirit, basically the same, just for spirit, so you can go a little bit more spirit heavy than Arcanist. But also Arcanists are pretty squishy, they have pretty bad base attributes here, base health, base physique, so you kinda wanna go all physique anyways on an Arcanist usually, unless you're already tanky enough, but that's probably gonna depend a lot on your gear that you have. Now let's also talk about all the stats that you see here. You have, in this game, you have the attributes, we just talked about those. You have the combat stats, offensive ability, defensive ability, damage per second, and armor rating. So offensive ability determines whether or not you are able to hit an enemy, and also whether or not you are able to crit an enemy. So there's a formula that is a little bit more complicated. You can check it up in the forum link down below. But basically, your chance to hit and crit an enemy is determined by your offensive ability compared to enemy defensive ability. And the same way the other way around, like whether you get hit or crit depends on your defensive ability and offensive ability of the enemy that hits you. Damage per second. Though this is something that most like new people get a little bit confused about, because this damage per second thing here only shows you DPS of whatever skill you have on your left mouse button, or if you have move to on your left mouse button, it shows you the DPS of your right mouse button. That can, especially on casters, confuse people quite a bit. So keep in mind that this is only reliable when you're using like a default attack build or like basically a one skill spam build, and you have that skill bound to your left or right mouse button. Right? Only then this is actually useful for you. Otherwise, it's not that useful for you. Don't trust this if you're not playing a default attacker. And even if you're playing a default attacker, it won't like take into account like your offensive ability and stuff like that. So even then it's not that trustable. Armor rating. Well, it determines how much armor you have. I have a whopping 6 armor on average right now. So the way armor in this game works is whenever you get hit, you basically have a 15% chance to get hit on your head, 15% on your shoulders, 26% on your chest, 12% on your arms, 20% on your legs, and 12% on your feet. Now, depending on how much armor rating you have on that specific part of your body, this armor will absorb a flat amount of physical damage from the hit you receive before all other absorption stats, basically. And armor absorption also determines how effective your armor is. So I have an armor rating of 12 on my chest, but it has only 70% effectiveness. So in reality I have like 8.4 armor and not 12 armor. Now there are different ways to get increased armor. Way number 1 is obviously to have anything equipped that you have more than 0. Also, each individual piece that you find will have armor on it. So better gear will have more armor usually, and then endgame gear will have either caster armor values or medium armor values or heavy armor values. On top of that, you can use components or skills or affixes on your weapons and armor that has percent armor. So this will like increase all of your armor by a certain percent. And also there are components and skills from devotions and also from masteries and affixes on items again that increase your armor absorption. And that way you can get up to 100% armor absorption, and then your armor will have 100% efficiency and not only 70. 70 is the default, you can't go lower than that, 100 is the max. Now you also have these resistances, which are like the main thing in this game, right? That's like the most important thing in this game. Defensively, you have resistances against fire, against cold, against lightning. Also, elemental are all 3 of these, so when you find something that has elemental resistances, it's gonna give you resistance for fire, cold, and lightning at like full effectiveness. So if you find 10% elemental, it's not gonna like cut it down to 3.3 fire, 3.3 cold, and 3.3 lightning. Now it's gonna be 10 fire, 10 cold, 10 lightning. Poison and acid, yeah, resists against poison and acid obviously, pierce against pierce, bleed against bleed, etc, etc. Stun is the only odd one out here. Stun is a CC resistance. You can't take damage from stun, you will only get, well, stunned if you don't have stun resistance. The default max value for all of these is 80%, and I'm gonna say that endgame, or like ultimate difficulty, is balanced around you having all of these maxed out. Maybe not the stun resistance, but all the like resistances for damage types that you can, well, actually take damage from will have to be maxed out to 80% usually, because like endgame is balanced around that. Now the second page here, you have weapon attack, you have not assigned, well I don't have anything assigned here, so this is like your left mouse button, this is your right mouse button, and this is like your base weapon damage, like which is like separated from whatever skill you're using here, right? Because your weapon damage might be augmented by some default attack replacer, for example, giving you more damage here than here. This is like your base weapon damage from your weapon only, and all of your buffs that you have on top. In this case, only by cunning, right? So the 7 to 15%, like 7 to 15 flat physical damage is gonna be like augmented by 20% here, and that's why we have 8 to 18 here. Remember that this is like gonna be the value for one single hit, compared to DPS, which is this number multiplied by either cast or attack speed, depending on what the skill scales with. Default attack, default weapon attack obviously scales with attack speed. So we have 1.88 attacks per second. We have 8 to 18 weapon attack, out of which 7 to 15 are physical and 1 to 3 are piercing actually, because this one has 15% armor piercing. And that will give us 20 damage per second. Now this value is dependent on your weapon, which has like a base attack speed, and then it will also depend on like the percent attack speed that you have on your character, with a maximum percent of 200%. Now you can also get more attack speed, not from just your weapon, but also from like devotions. There are some nodes here like total speed, for example. Total speed is casting speed, attack speed, and movement speed, by the way, so this will give you 6% more attack speed here, for example. Next up, we got the critical damage. Critical chance in this game is only determined by offensive ability compared to enemy defensive ability, right? So you don't have like anything else in this game that actually increases your chance to crit. It's only offensive ability. So it's pretty important. And critical damage is gonna be the multiplier by which the critical strike is gonna be multiplied on top of its normal multiplier. So for normal multipliers you have like different I'm gonna post a link down below again here for that, for offensive ability stuff, because there are like different windows where you do like a different amount of your normal attack with a crit, depending again on like your offensive ability compared to enemy defensive ability. Run speed, self-explanatory, max run speed 135. You can increase this with skills and devotions, etc. as well, and also with items. Healing increase, this increases the effectiveness of your heals, like potions and heals from devotions or skills or items. HP regen, self-explanatory, these are all self-explanatory. Constitution bonus, this basically increases the amount of mist that you have here, right? Or it like increases the effectiveness of your yellow mist that you have here. But to be honest, it's a pretty useless stat. XP gain, well, obviously useful if you wanna like level fast. Light radius, pretty useless. And it shows you like all skills that you have for your masteries. That's like pretty whatever, but you can see it here if you want to. Then it will show you like physical damage and also lifesteal here. Yeah, okay, let's talk about lifesteal here. So lifesteal in this game, especially this passive lifesteal that you see here on your character page here. This is called lifesteal here, but unlike everything else, it is usually called attack damage converted to health. So for example, if I were to choose this node here, right, this goo node here, gives me passive because it's a white star, it's passive. It gives me 4% attack damage converted to health. Now if I take this node, it will tell me I have 4% lifesteal here. And 4% lifesteal means the percent of the weapon attack damage you deal with also replenishes your health, right? So this means that this will heal you by 4% of all damage that you deal with your weapon. That includes default attacks. It also includes skills that have percent weapon damage. For example, if you're using Promise Strike, this has 110% main handed damage at level 1. It will have more later. So that will mean that this will use 110% of the value that you have over here, right? This value here. And then 4% of that will be healed for you. This will not work on skills that don't have weapon damage. So for example, let me bring up a better example here. For example, Blackwater Cocktail, right? This just deals fire and burn damage. It's like a cocktail that you throw. And it doesn't say anything about weapon damage. Also not on these modifiers. No weapon damage here, no here, no here. So this means that you cannot heal from Blackwater Cocktail via this lifesteal on this page. This will not heal you. This will only apply to weapon damage. There are skills, however, that have attack damage converted to health on the skill itself. For example, Devouring Swarm. Now this ability has no weapon damage, but it still heals you, because it has flat vitality damage, and it has bleeding damage, and it has 20% of attack damage converted to health, bound to the skill itself. This means that only this skill will have 20% attack damage converted to health. This will not apply to anything else, only to the skill. And also note that attack damage converted to health, basically lifesteal, whether it's on a skill or it's over here on this page, only works on flat damage. It does not work on damage over time. So in this case, it will only work on the vitality damage and not on the bleeding damage. So in this case, you deal 4 vitality damage, right, and 4 bleeding damage. So that means that for each tick of this thing ticking, you will heal 0.8 HP, right? At level 1 at least. Like if you put more points, it will heal you more, obviously. And also if you scale the damage up, it will also heal you more. So yeah, if you have more questions about lifesteal in general, like which abilities lifesteal for you, etc, etc, it gets even more complicated when you have skill modifiers, because there are items that add attack damage converted to health to certain abilities that don't usually have this. In that case though, they will act the same way as Devouring Swarm will. So the skill modifier is only local for the skill, it will not be global on your bar here, like not on the stat bar here. So only that one skill will get the modifier, and it will like heal you for the damage that the skill itself does. And if that skill also has weapon damage, it will not only heal you because of the weapon damage, but it will heal you of its with its base damage as well, just like Devouring Swarm would do. But yeah, if you have more questions regarding lifesteal, feel free to ask anything in the comments down below. Now, magical damage, we got the casting speed here. Basically it's the same thing for casting speed abilities. Like it's just basically like attack speed for casters, right? So like all your casts will be casted faster. Particularly interesting and important for cast speed casters that like spam an ability over and over. Max speed 200% here as well. Cooldown reduction. Yeah, reduces the cooldown of your skills and devotions as well. Pretty self-explanatory, right? Skill energy cost, like reduces the energy cost of your skills. Percent health damage. Now this only works on like some elites and trash mobs as far as I know. It's a pretty... I don't even know why that's still in the game actually. Like this is a pretty whatever damage type. And then you have like all the damage types, right? Fire, cold, lightning, acid, vitality, aether, chaos, burn being the damage over time of fire, frostburn being the damage over time of cold, etc, etc. And then you will have like the modifiers here. So this will like take into account all your percent damage modifiers from your gear, your masteries. Like this one has percent physical damage, right? Demo has like percent fire, percent lightning, right? And then you have devotions that also give you like percent fire or like percent acid here, probably somewhere percent poison, for example, right? These will all be added over here together. They will add together, they will stack additively, and then in the end multiplicate your base damage here, whatever you have on your skill, by that percent, right? And it will show you like the already multiplicated value over here in game, but in Grim Tools it won't. It will still like show you the base value only. And also for the damage over time damages, you have a duration. So yeah, you have, for example, a spell that has, I don't know, 4 seconds duration or something like that, right? 3-second duration. Vitality decay per second over 3-second duration, something like that, right? So this will like increase the duration of that damage over time ability, and by that, like make rotating between different damage over time abilities more viable than before. There are also pet damage. Like there's also pet damage in this game, and pet damage is completely separated from player damage. If you want like a really in-depth guide for pets, check out Maya's pet guidebook on the forums. I will also try to post a link down below here for that guidebook of hers. And she basically explains everything about pets in Grim Dawn in a very nice way. And I think she does a really good job at that, so I'm not even gonna try to explain anything here. I'm just gonna say that pet stats in this game are completely separate from player stats, so for pets you need to give them resistances as well, give them offensive ability, defensive ability, run speed, cast speed, attack speed, damage, life. They have like completely separated stats from yourself. Unless they are player scaled pets, and it will say player scaled pets, or pet scaled pets over the particular skill usually. For example, Occultist has Raven. Here it says the Raven scales with pet bonuses in yellow. This guy, the Hellhound, scales with pet bonuses. So these are true pets. But you also have, for example, Storm Totem. Storm Totem scale with player damage bonuses. Storm Totem is considered a player scaled pet, or a totem in this case. But there are also pets like a Hellhound or the Promise Spirit here, for example. Like the Promise Spirit from Shaman is a pet bonus scaled pet, so a true pet. But you will encounter other runes or relics that spawn a similar pet. It looks the same, but it will have a saying, this pet scales of player, like it scales of player damage or something like that, like of player bonuses. So those are actually player scaled pets, even though they look like normal pets. So just to keep that in mind, to not like mix those two different pets too much together, because hybrid builds in this game don't really work that well. And usually you want to try to either focus on like a true pet build and focus on like pet bonuses, or you will use player scaled pets which focus on and then the build will focus on like just normal player stats, and then the pets will get those stats as well. For example, Blood Knight set. Alright, let's move on to the page 3 of the stats here. Now this is the defense tab. You will have like shield stats here. Chance to block, damage blocked, block recovery. So these first 3 things are shield only. The chance to block will like determine obviously like at which percentage you will block a physical incoming hit. Note that shields also like only block physical hits, nothing else. Damage blocked means like how much damage will basically be absorbed by a successful block. And block recovery. Now every shield has a block recovery, right? So for example, this one has 0.8 seconds block recovery. So once you block with this, it needs 0.8 seconds until it can block again. And if you have block recovery, it will need less time to be able to block again. So if you have 100% block recovery, for example, you will be able to block constantly. Dodge and deflect chance. Dodge is basically dodging melee attacks, deflect is basically dodging ranged attacks, or like deflecting them, negating the damage completely, right? These are not the same as the chance to dodge via defensive ability, because like defensive ability basically means that the enemy does not hit you, and this means that the enemy would be able to hit you, but you dodged it anyways. So these two add together, and if you have like a decent amount of points here, this is actually like an okay type of defense, but it's still pretty RNG heavy, so it's not that reliable, especially not in hardcore. Nightblades are really good for dodge and deflect, for example. But these are like, all of these are also resistances. This one being like a damage resistance, and the other ones being CC resistance, except for like this is life leech, this is energy leech, so this means like how much can enemies heal of you. This will mean like how much can like enemies drain energy of you. And yeah, this is CC as well. Disruption is a CC. Physical resistance, really important, especially for casters. Every damage type works the same way except for physical, right? Every damage type will be reduced by percent resistances, right? Except for physical and internal trauma. Like, internal trauma has physical resistance by which it will be reduced, and physical, flat physical damage, flat physical hits, will first be reduced by armor, depending on the rating and depending on where you got hit, and also depending on your absorption, right? And then after that, it will be reduced by its percentage via physical resistance. And the way this rune works is the same way these work. So, say you get hit by 1000 damage, right, and you have 50% resistance, you will take 500 damage instead, right? But if you have, say, 300 armor with 100% resistance, absorption first, your initial hit will be reduced by 300, right, because of your armor, so you will have 700 damage, 50% resistance here, means you get 350 damage hit. Well, yeah, that's why like physical is a special case in Grim Dawn compared to other damage types, because you can reduce its damage in two ways, but also it is way harder to get physical resistance compared to these resistances. Usually a build will like end up with like maybe 20 to 30% physical resistance, maybe even less, maybe more. The less armor you have, the more physical resistance you should have to make up for it. It's not always that easy. Some characters will always remain like more squishy, some will always be more tanky. Just keep in mind that, don't forget about this, that even though it's like on the third page, it's actually super important. And then you also have the CC resistances, like trap, resistance against being entrapped, disruption, resistance against being disrupted, which means you cannot cast any skills. You can use default attacks, but you cannot cast skills. So spells, etc. Petrify against being petrified, freeze against being freeze, sleep against being put into a deep sleep state. But honestly, I don't even know which enemy puts it to sleep. Like, this is so rare, this is basically useless. Or like, you don't have to have anything against this. But yeah, freeze, petrify, disruption, trap, and slow can be pretty good to have, or like to have higher numbers in. Especially a freeze. In some situations you need like really high freeze resistance. But there's also a potion for freeze resistance that you can use that gives you temporarily way more freeze resistance. I'm finally gonna talk about retaliation. So I said before that there are like kinda 3 different damage types in this game, right? You have normal damage, you have retaliation damage, and you have pet damage. So pet damage gets scaled by pet percent, like pet modifiers. Normal damage gets scaled by like these nodes over here, right? These modifiers here, magical or physical. And then you have retaliation damage. Now retaliation damage only gets scaled by these retaliation modifiers. And retaliation damage works in the following way. Whenever you get hit by melee attacks only, you will retaliate a certain amount of damage towards your enemy. So, say you have 100 retaliation damage, your enemy hits you with a melee attack, he will get 100 damage, right? Even though you didn't do anything. Now if a ranged character hits you, you will get no damage at all. So retaliation damage is way more effective against melee enemies than ranged enemies. That's how it's been until the latest expansion. So what I just said is still true, even now with the latest expansion. But the latest expansion added a certain stat called retaliation damage added to attack, to certain abilities, and also to items, to skill modifiers for items. For example, the Grasping Vines line now has 4% retaliation damage added to attack at level 1 for Entangling Vines modifier. And that means that the base skill itself will deal 4% of all your retaliation damage combined on like each hit of this ability, right? This is like a ticking ability, so on each tick you will deal 4% of all your retaliation damage here. And if you have like crazy numbers in retaliation damage, yeah, you can make retaliation only builds basically, because you have active abilities that also hurt ranged characters now, right? Like this ability will hurt ranged and melee enemies alike, and because of that, the retaliation damage here is not wasted. Yeah, that's basically how retaliation works, and you can make some pretty tanky, pretty awesome retaliation characters in that way as well. You can have like super tanky builds that also deal lots of damage at the same time that way. And yeah, it's honestly really strong. It got nerfed once already, but it's still really strong. And also note that the normal retaliation stuff here cannot be converted, but retaliation damage added to attack can be converted. So say you have, I don't know, like a bunch of fire, cold, stuff like that, lightning, retaliation damage here, and you have an item that converts all of your elemental damage to physical damage. So you have... So elemental damage being converted to physical damage means all your fire, your cold, and lightning damage will all be converted to physical damage. And then you have like 4% retaliation damage here. So this will get all your fire, lightning, cold retaliation damage added to this, right? And then the conversion happens, and then all of that will be converted to physical damage, to physical retaliation. You can like streamline your damage really nicely, even on retaliation builds. Yeah, then you also see some stats here, right? Blah 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 blah. This is like whatever. Greatest monster killed, total deaths taken, blah blah blah. Self-explanatory, right? So thank you so much everyone for watching this video. If you have any further questions, feel free to ask them down in the comments below. Also, I might have missed some stats that you still wonder about. Also, just put them in the comments. I'm gonna try to answer all of your questions there. Also, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you want more episodes of Grim Dawn Basic. I have quite some more planned, but yeah, maybe you can also do something like a viewers decide which one will be the next episode thing. Maybe I should like post my ideas down in the comments below as well, and let you guys decide on which one you would like to see next. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll hopefully see you guys on the next video.